Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Lainey Castle and I am a project director with the American Library Association's Public Programs Office. I would like to thank you for joining us for today's online learning session, which is eReader Classes for the Masses, and it will focus on how staff with the Pioneer Library System implemented Getting to Know Your eReader classes for their patrons. This session is presented by programminglibrarian.org, which is a resource website of the ALA Public Programs Office created with support from the ALA Cultural Communities Fund. Before we get started, I would like to set out some basic information about communication in the online classroom, and then we'll move along to the main presentation. First, if you are experiencing technical difficulties, please send a private message to our technical support person, Angela Hanshaw, describing your problem. To send that private message, you can click on the name Angela Hanshaw, which should be at the very top of the list on the left-hand side of your screen, and select Start Private Chat. Next, we will have a Q&A period after the main presentation, but if you have questions during the presentation, please ask them in the chat box and our presenter will respond to them whenever possible. Handouts for this webinar are available for download. Those should be at the lower left side of your screen. To download the zipped file, which includes ebook definitions, an eReader comparison chart, and how-to guides for various devices, select Related Files, then click on Save to My Computer. And finally, if you do experience technical problems during the session, don't panic because the complete presentation is being recorded and will be available for download after the program's conclusion via programminglibrarian.org. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our presenter, Adri Edwards-Johnson. Adri has been Virtual Library Coordinator for Pioneer Library System in Oklahoma since November of 2006. Prior to working in public libraries, she worked in academic libraries in various capacities for 10 years. Her first step into virtual librarianship was as a government publications librarian in 2001 when she took responsibility for the GPO Browse Topics website. Later on, because she knew what an 856 was, she ended up working with databases and online serial subscriptions. In 2008, she was an ALA Emerging Leader. While she's sure a lot more could be said about her professional self, she requests that you ask her for her resume for the long story. Just know that she's originally from Kansas, and so any discussion of Oklahoma's football rivalry bores her, since Kansas basketball in any form is the only real sport. We are so happy to have Adri with us today to share her experiences, so without further delay, I will hand the microphone over to you, Adri.
Okay, I'll see if you can hear my microphone real quick. If I can just get a couple yeses, if you can hear me. And for those hearing static, I'm sure you're hearing just fine. Okay, good. Real quick, if you scroll down through the attendees or participants, you may see that there is a Shay White who is participating well. She's one of my colleagues here in the virtual library, and she's going to help me kind of handle any chat questions that come in. So if a Shay White responds to you, she's not some nefarious prankster. She knows what she's talking about. So hopefully that will work. Angela and Lainey, is my microphone okay for you all? I hope so. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So this presentation is eReader Classes for the Masses, and Pioneer Library System is the one in Oklahoma. There are others out there, but we are, just so you know, us online. The presentation is going to cover a little bit about Pioneer and the virtual library, and then we're going to look at our classes. I'm going to give you a little background as to what we've done in the past and where we are now, what our objectives are in teaching the classes, what kind of equipment we use and have on hand during the classes, and then marketing, how we market the classes and the materials we use. I'll discuss with you a little bit of the challenges and lessons we've learned along the way, and then also give you time for Q&A. So to get started, about Pioneer Library System. We are a multi-county library system in Oklahoma. We are located to the south and east of Oklahoma City. We're in Cleveland, McLean, and Pottawatomie counties. And we have 10 physical locations. We actually, a couple months ago, just opened our 10th location in South Oklahoma City. And we have one virtual library. We have 3 what we call book boxes, where we deliver books to malls or convenience stores for people to pick up their books in more remote locations. And then we have something called information stations, and we have 8 of those. For Oklahoma, there's certain requirements you have to meet to be able to have a library. In our information stations, which on this slide are these little kind of tags there, those communities are too small for full-size libraries. So we deliver books, and we have a catalog machine located there, and they're staffed by volunteers. We service about a 350,000 population area, but about 175,000 actually have library cards. And then as far as the library system itself, we have just over 300 staff. We've had a growth spurt the past several years, which is really nice. So a little bit about Pioneer so you can get a feel how we relate to, hopefully, your organizations. About the virtual library, we opened in 2007. I was hired on at the end of 2006, and we did a massive website redesign. And the virtual library for a Pioneer library system, basically, if it's connected to the internet, if staff or public access it via the internet, then the virtual library is involved. That includes our public website, as well as our staff intranet, our social networking. All of that is coordinated through the virtual library. We have 3 full-time librarians. We get a federal work-study position from the local university, University of Oklahoma. And then we try to have a library school student intern with us each semester, if we're lucky enough. We actually have one right now who's listening in. We started with Overdrive as our downloadable service on April 1st, 2008. So if it didn't work, we could say April Fools. Luckily, the audiobooks worked, so that was a good thing. And we do only have one downloadable service at this time at Overdrive. We have, my department also does the majority of the tech support for Overdrive. We do have people trained in the staff in the libraries, but the really more detailed questions come to our department. In 2009, we created what we call a virtual library card, and those are for people who live, work, go to school, or own property in our service area, but they're unable to make it into the library to apply for a library card. And so these are customers, for whatever reason, they never make it into a hometown library, but the virtual library is the only library that they use. And we have had pretty good success with that. And then in March 2011, you may or may not have heard about the HarperCollins and their 26 checkout rule, but we created a little video to put up on YouTube that illustrated what 26 checkouts looked like in print books, and we loaded that up to YouTube, and it got picked up by Boing Boing and a couple of other big websites. So that's a little bit about the virtual library, and we'd be happy to answer any questions later on you might have about the virtual library. Let's see here. I'm just trying to watch the chat here come in. Hopefully most of you can hear me. So about the classes, they have been a long time in coming and in development. It started out in 2008 when we got Overdrive, and we had 9 branches at the time. That because the staff of the virtual library was much smaller than what it is right now, that it was the responsibility of the branch staff to train customers on how to use the downloadable audio service. We supported them in that we gave each branch an MP3 player. Each branch has a download station where customers could come in with their device and download audiobooks there in the library. Because of our service area, we have a lot of people who have slow or unreliable internet access at home because they live in quite rural areas. And so the overdrive stations were a way to put that technology, the speed of the internet, into their hands by visiting their local library. We also have a program at Pioneer called the PLS Academy. It's a training academy. Our training coordinator, Louise Whitaker, does. And it's amazing. It's very in-depth. Basically, if there's something you need to do for your job, there's a training for it. And so there was an overdrive training, part of the PLS Academy, that staff could participate in. And then we relied solely on the overdrive training material that was given to us. So from about mid-2008, probably to the last half of 2009, we told branch staff, if you really want, it's your responsibility to set up this programming like all the other programs you do. And there wasn't a lot done. And it's mainly because our branch staff, their priorities are so branch oriented. They have the things that they know customers come in regularly for. They have the story times, they have the tutoring, they have reading with dogs. It's all the stuff that they're set. It's the service they've always provided. And so to shift their priorities and add a new service on top of it was asking a lot of them. And some of them were not really as comfortable with the technology. So starting in 2009, late 2009, we started reevaluating how we were doing our classes for downloadable material. So in 2010, we actually started where the virtual library was the presenting. The PLS Academy is the Pioneer Library System. The question came in. Pioneer Library System Academy. It's a training academy set up by our training department where staff have core skill sets they have to learn. And so we had an overdrive training incorporated into our PLS Academy. Does that answer your question? Hopefully you heard it. I'm going to say that typing's okay. Okay. So in 2010, you're welcome, the scheduling of classes, it was the virtual library staff's responsibility to come in as guest lecturer, basically, or guest instructor. But the branch staff were responsible for scheduling it with us. So they looked at their programs that they had to see when they had a gap, when they wanted to offer a class. So we started doing that in 2010. We still continued our staff trainings, however. We still have the download stations in each branch. We have the PLS Academy Overdrive training. Instead of just using the overdrive materials, we've incorporated virtual library training materials. So we don't just use what overdrive gives us. We actually have an online training, webinar training. We actually have one coming up for our staff on how to use overdrive. And then we also have handouts. Some of them are examples that are available for you to download. And we have other materials that we can give. We've done YouTube videos for our staff. We have a lot of handouts all available. And if there's something that we don't have that staff feel that they need, all they have to do is ask and we will design it for them. And then as we do the programs in the classes for the public, we do ask that at least one branch staff person be present at all the public trainings. And that's to reinforce the training so they can also hear the questions that customers ask and hear our responses to customers as well. So that's kind of how the classes have evolved. We took the burden off the branch staff, and since the virtual library is administrative staff, we're offering that service to the entire system. Our PLS Academy is only for Pioneer Library System staff. So, but we do coordinate with the other larger library systems in the state for some group trainings, but our academy is just for our staff. Okay. Does anyone have any questions at this time about the evolution of the classes? I'll go into more detail about them, but this is just how we've started with the classes and how it evolved. All right, so to the nitty-gritty, how do you get to ask your administration to spend money? We started out in the virtual library. We were really panicky about, does your VL staff do the YouTube videos? Yes, we do. The virtual library staff does do the YouTube videos. And we've had our interns do them. We've had the staff do them, or the virtual library staff do them. But yes, we do the YouTube videos. We use Jing. We do have a YouTube channel. You can get to it by going to there. Initially, when we started getting ebooks, we weren't so concerned about the audiobooks, but ebook readers. I personally had the first Nook at home. I used that, but we really didn't have anything in the office to be able to test with. And so we started buying everything. We're like, look, Bed Bath & Beyond has a e-reader. Let's buy it because it has $50 off. You know, we were buying every imaginable ebook reader out there to get our hands on them to see what the technology looked like. We do have customers come in with some off brands. But honestly, the majority of the things that come in is what's on the screen right there. So if you're unfamiliar with what they are in order here. Hopefully you can see my mouse. We have the original Nook with the touchscreen on the bottom. There's nothing on the screen. Okay. Can anyone see anything on their screen? Okay, good. All right. Let's see here. So this right here is just your regular Nook, and then the Nook Color and the Nook Tablet is next to that. They're pretty similar. I have a Nook Tablet at home, but we only have a Nook Color in the office. Your Kindle keyboard, your Kindle Fire. The Sony Wi-Fi reader, we initially had several types of Sony readers, and they were quickly disappointing me in their quality and ease of use. And so this is, I will say I've been pleasantly surprised by these Sony Wi-Fis, and we're actually in the process of our newest location training the staff so we could circulate these Sony Wi-Fis. We do have a Kobo, mainly to show people that there are brands outside of the big names that do sell really well in the rest of the world. And the Kobo is one of those brands that actually sells well outside of the United States. We have an iPad too, and then we have an iPhone or an iTouch. It's really odd. Nobody in my department actually owns an iPhone. We all happen to be Samsung users. It just worked out that way. I have a Note, and the others have Galaxy class phones. Yay, Android phones. Anyway, so we have the iPod Touch because it's a good way to show the functions of the app for people with iPhones. Yes, there's nothing wrong with iPhones. They're very good, and I don't take that as a slight. It's just we just happen not to have any in our department. As far as our presentation machine, we have a Dell laptop that runs Windows 7. We have Internet Explorer 9, which does pose some issues. iTunes. We have Overdrive Media Console and Adobe Digital Editions. We do have all the devices registered to a virtual library account for Adobe Digital Editions, and so far it's worked pretty well. And then we have this great little cart that we haul it all around in. If you're wanting one of these, it has a great little flap that helps protect stuff from the rain. Pockets in it for handout. It's great. This is an Olympia Tools pack and roll, and they're like $60 online. They're really reasonable. They're great to haul around if you're ever going out and doing stuff. But these are pretty much the devices that we use in all our presentations, and the ones we see from customers the most are the Kindle Fire, the Kindle Touch or Kindle Keyboard in some way, shape, or form, and then more so, we're seeing more Nook tablets in our department when we do these programs. So any questions about the equipment that we use? That's a good question. Do we have tech support for Kobo considering Borders is gone? Borders did sell the Kobo in their stores, but Kobo is its own company, and so, but we've really not had any problems with our Kobo. Name of Carrie Elligan? It is, let me type it up for you here real quick. We got the Olympia, I think we got it online through Lowell's, actually, is where we found it. I was trying to find something. The virtual account, we actually use a email address that emails everyone in the department. It's virtuallibrary@pls.lib.ok.us, and you'll see it here at the end. But everything is registered to that account, and all the emails, all the registration, everything goes to that account. So we've worked with our email administrator to create, basically it's a list or an alias that emails everyone in the department to keep everyone on track and know what's going on. So if there's ever any issues with the devices, we all get the emails about software updates and everything like that. So does that answer your question about the virtual account? Very good question, Kathy. I'll get to that. Yeah, well, good question. Okay, so those are our devices, and I'll talk a little bit more about the classes here. Let's see, was there anything else I missed? What about the original iPads? A lot of our patrons have those. I'm looking out my window. I can't see Shay, her door's closed. We do not have a lot of people who come in with the original iPads that I know or that we've been contacted by. I'm sorry, Missy, I don't know. We've not had a lot of people come in with those with questions. We do have the iPad 2 in the office. So it's, for us, the original iPads, if there's differences, we are unaware of them. So the objective of the classes, we wanted to sit down, and Missy, if anyone knows of any differences with the original iPads versus the iPad, any rendition afterwards, please let her know. I'm unaware of any differences. So as far as when we design these classes, what we want people to know is that for people who walk in with their ebook readers, there is help available. Nothing else. They could walk away from the class knowing absolutely nothing. They walk out and all they have to know is that there is some place for them to get help. That's the only thing. Beyond that, it's understanding the technical steps involved with it, you know, how the device works, how it interacts with the library interfaces. Oh, how many people are promoting classes? That's a good question. As many as the room will hold. And in some cases, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but Wendy, if I don't come back to your question, let me know. But yeah, we just let in anyone who, yeah, as many seats as there are, that's the number of bodies we let in. Understanding the library process. So the process that the library goes through to get the material, our selection process, our hold ratio. We want customers to understand that. We've actually been getting a lot. It's interesting. The more men who use the service, the more questions we get about why do I have to place something on hold. This question is almost exclusively coming from men. It's really interesting. So understanding. Oh, can everyone hear me? Okay, I'll repeat what I said. Is the understanding the library process, like why they have to place stuff on hold and how we maintain our hold ratios, which by the way is 1 to 9. So for every every 9 holds we buy another copy of it. But we get that question a lot from men. As more men start using the service, we get that question a lot. So to get them to understand that. And then to also introduce them very briefly to the issues revolving around e-publishing with HarperCollins, Penguin Publishing, all the publishers who, one minute or another decide to drop us at being able to purchase their materials or affording their materials, we let them know. How do you prevent patrons from purchasing items from the e-reader stores on the device? We encourage customers to bring their own devices. As far as we don't, for the ones we use in the class, they're not holding them long enough or interacting with them long enough without someone there to be able to accidentally buy something. Is it hard to get someone to understand when they think that it is? Just so they can't, so why can't we use it all at once? It's for anyone who knows any savviness about web files or how files operate, they think it's a ridiculous policy for the publishers to have, but they understand the restrictions are placed on us. I mean, we work really hard, and we use the terms the publishers are using. So when the publishers say they want to add friction to the process, that's the term we use, because we know inevitably they're going to go back and they're going to Google, what we say. They're going to question us, and so that's what we keep them aware of that. For those without e-readers, we want them to be educated consumers. That's the one thing we notice, and even my 6-year-old has brought this up before. She'll say, "Mommy, what kind of class are you teaching tonight?" I say, "Well, I'm teaching people to how to use their e-readers." And she says, "Well, why don't they know how to use something they bought?" And so we're wanting them to learn the differences in the devices before they ever purchase it. For somebody who has poor circulation in their fingertips, is the Kindle Fire really the best device for them? We had a very lovely lady come into our office who cursed her son 9 ways to next week because he bought her a Kindle Fire, and she has poor circulation in her hands, and she couldn't get the touchscreen to respond. And so, we want them to realize the technical issues and the differences in the devices. With also, again, a brief introduction to e-publishing, because if they want something by a particular publisher and they think they're going to get it free from the library, we want them to realize, there's only so much we can do. We give them the opportunity to interact with the different devices. And then ultimately that once they do purchase the device, there is help available. So really the objective of the class is twofold depending on who your audience is made of. And one thing with these classes, they're very flexible, they're very dynamic. Depending on your audience, depends how you have to pivot and change the class at that moment. I see lots of people typing. Let me see here. So are there any questions so far? And I'm going to talk now about how the class is structured and how we do that. But if you have some questions real quick based on what I've said, I'd be happy to take them. I know Shay's been fielding stuff right here. Yeah, the thing, we don't lend e-readers at this time. We're in the process of developing that. We have been a pilot site for Overdrive's test drive program, and so that's one reason why we're looking at the Sony Wi-Fi. So, all right. So I'm going to go ahead and then talk about the class format since I don't see any questions coming in, and hopefully everyone's still awake. So the way we set up the class is, any news on Overdrive Management Console for a new tablet? You know, I have no news on that, and if I was a betting woman, which I'm not, but if I was, I would bet that that's probably not coming out anytime soon. We're going to see the EPUB format working with the browser, I think, before we see the media console for the Nook tablet. Now, if you want to know how to get around that and root your Nook tablet or your Nook Color to get it, I can talk to you about that, but I don't see that happening. Yeah, that's what we know right now. So the way we set up our class is we have the handouts, some of which you have for download, and the devices at the front of the room. And we actually use book stands to hold the devices and show them on display. And we set up about 30 minutes before the class starts because we find that they get there really early because they want a seat so they can hear what's going on. And we have the website projected at the front of the room. So that's how we have it there, and everything's charged. There's some sample books on them so they can interact, and we really start getting a feel for who's going to attend based on the initial questions we get that first 30 minutes. We always use a live internet connection, which can be good and bad. We work very closely because of we do an authentication method for our Wi-Fi that requires customers to accept a terms of service page. And we work really closely with it's a terms of service page which honestly breaks about 90% of the e-reader devices out there. And so we've been working closely with our technology department to streamline that process, and they tell me that they've almost got it solved, so that's good. But for these classes, we ask that they turn off the authentication page just for these classes. And it is throughout the entire library, but as soon as the class is over with, they bring it back up. That way customers, especially Kindle Fire users, can go through the entire process. There has been times, and this goes back to allowing people, how many people we allow in the classes. Our biggest class we had was about 90 people. And when we saw the wait list start growing for this class, and it was actually in our Norman Public Library, we made the decision to actually, Shay and I made the decision to split the class into two classes and do it one class specifically for Kindle users and the other class specifically for everyone else who didn't have a Kindle. And that was a difficult class because there were so many people trying to connect to our wireless with their e-reader devices. It did kind of come to a crawl. But so the most people we've ever had in an evening session was 90 people. Yes, Marla, of course you can customize them for your library. Hopefully that kind of tells you that's why we do say, and I'll say this, and it's something we've learned, you want to make sure you do have people registered to be there. So we have a live internet connection, and then something we do kind of as an icebreaker before the class is we survey the attendees. And I'm going to go to the next slide so you can see the questions we ask. And then I'll come back to the other slide. So this is just a raise of hand survey. You could hand this out in paper if you're a data monkey and you really want to track all this data and write an awesome research paper on it, and then I will read it and applaud you. But I'm not doing it. So you could, but the questions we ask is, what kind of device do you have? That's a great place to start. And then what is the one piece of information you want to leave with today? I make sure that every single thing that is said by a customer in that room is written down. And I make sure I address every single thing, the one piece of information that person wants to walk away with. Because that's what they told me they want to leave with. So I make sure they leave happy. We ask how many people know their library PIN. Because for a lot of these people, they have never really used the library online resources before. A lot of them are not aware that they have a PIN number that gets them access to all this other stuff. The problem we've seen with Kindle users is that a lot of them receive their Kindles as gifts. Let's say it was purchased for them by their children. And so it's registered to their children's Amazon account, so they don't know their Amazon login, which, depending on the title they want to download, they may have to have when they download the book. So we make sure that before that person leaves the room, if they don't know their Amazon login, that we've helped them contact Amazon support before they leave so that they'll know how to get to their device. Marion, no, we do not have any of the other digital downloadable titles. We've made the decision to only do Overdrive, which doesn't mean we won't change later on, but just right now, that's all we have. We always ask how many people in the room have library cards. I've actually found it amazing. Some of these people, this is their first time showing up to the library in years. Maybe they had a library card 10, 15 years ago, but we want to make sure they have the card in hand. So how many receive the device as a gift? That's just interesting to know. And then how many have already used the device? That can be real telling as well, so you know how in-depth and how detailed you have to be with your instructions. So this is back to the format. So once we have the survey, and that's a very brief, raise a hands, kind of go around thing. We always start out with the main page of the library website. And then we navigate to our Overdrive page. We always start with showing how to do the advanced search, mainly because for Overdrive, and if you use Overdrive, their main search honestly is kind of crappy. That's why they're working on changing it. But the advanced search, you can do so much more with it. And while we're there, we explain in context what I call the 3 Ps. And that's policies. So we talk about the library policies, how many you can have checked out at once, again, how your holds, how the holds work, all of that good stuff. So that's our policies. Purchasing, how we go about doing our collection development, how we do purchase requests, how we maintain our hold ratios, so all of that good information. And then publisher restrictions, because on that page it shows you how to restrict your search to publishers, or making sure that maybe you want to see if your favorite author is by specific publishers. So we talk about that on that page. So everything starts out with the advanced search, and then we show browsing features afterwards. That page also has the always available search right there by format, which makes it a lot easier to do stuff during a live training session as well. We then show how to download and transfer and return books to the 2 most popular devices in the room, which I've not had it be anything other than Kindle, since Kindle started working with Overdrive titles, or a Nook. It's always been one of those 2. Now, I'm sure it will be at some point in time when Big Lots, Big Seller is going to be the most popular one in the room. But, that has not happened yet. These classes, we normally schedule about 2 hours for the classes, and the training itself, depending on questions, normally takes about 1 hour and 15 minutes, and that leaves us the rest of the time for one-on-one. And that's where we really get into how to use the device if they have extra questions, because Shay was talking about we don't spend too much time on how to use the device. But inevitably, people are there because they want to know how to get library books. So, any questions about the class format? And these are these questions again that we ask. So we've gone from the first classes we taught to a staff person convincing their child to show up for the program. Oh, how long does class normally take? The class normally takes about an hour and 15 minutes, but we schedule 2 hours for it. And how many instructors for each class? There's one of us normally speaking up in the front, but we make sure we have at least one other support person in the room to be able to help, someone to walk around and to answer individual questions as they come up. That's the minimum number of instructors you should have. We've had classes where we've had to have more than that. So we've gone from classes when we first started doing this where it was like my colleague Kevin and one staff person's child in the room, and that was it. No one else was there. We've now gotten to where, I mean, literally, we had to take a class and divide it up into two. So how did we do that? The first thing is we stopped calling it how to use Overdrive or how to get books from the library or how to da-da-da. We stopped calling that, and we've called it getting to know your e-readers, because that's what people know. That's what they know they don't know. And so that's what we're calling them now. We have a lot of tchotchkes we give away, knickknacks, bric-brac stuff. Our marketing person came up with this concept of my library to go. Wherever you go, your library goes. So we have these purple luggage tags that we give out. We've done glow-in-the-dark bracelets, pencils. We've done bookmarks. We give stuff away. People love stuff. We market on the concept that this is something, once they know how to use their ebook reader, is available to them 24/7, no matter where they're at. Literally, their library goes where they go. It's mylibrarytogo.com. And we do have that website URL that works for us. And then the other big thing is we promote it in print. We have a former newspaper guy who works for us who does articles in local newspapers. All the local papers, gets them in there. We also send out flyers. Some of our smaller communities will send out flyers. Had one lady show up and said she found it at her local church, a flyer. That's why she was there. Our materials, we do our definitions. These are all things available for you to download in that little related files packet. The only thing not there is a virtual library business card. We make sure everyone walks out with a virtual library business card so they can contact us at any time to ask questions. And that is a card that has a central phone number which calls everybody in my department, and a central email address which goes to everyone in my department. So the biggest challenges and lessons we've learned from this. The first one, branch staff is both a challenge and a lesson. The challenge initially was that we had to learn what our branch staff were comfortable with and what their priorities for their branches were. And it's a huge responsibility to keep the branches up and running. And so here, our class is held at one branch or all locations. All locations, wherever we need to take the class, that's where we take it. We've taken it to schools before as well, if need be. Where the classes need, we take it there. And that's really where it's important for us to work with the branch staff. If they see the need, they contact us, they bring us in, and we are their subject specialists. We're not like some large public libraries where we have subject specialists in certain areas, but the virtual library in this case is the subject specialist, and so they call us in to help. Wi-Fi authentication was a huge issue, still remains one, and we're learning a lot through it, and we're working very closely with our IT department to resolve that. Maintaining our updates of handouts, making sure our pricing, our ebook comparison sheet is up to date and accurate. We rely a lot on our interns and work studies to help with that. Making registration required is absolutely important, vital, so we know how many to anticipate. If we need to expand it, bring in extra teachers. So requiring registration, very important. Making sure we have library card applications on hand. Initially, we didn't do that, and people would walk out thinking that they couldn't use the service because they didn't have a library card. So we make sure before they leave, every single person knows their PIN and they know that they have a library card. How do we handle no-shows? Do we take a deposit? No, we don't do that. We just go on good faith. If they don't show, they don't show. But most of the time, they do, and it's not the end of the world. We don't need to own every device under the sun, but we do need to be familiar with the Kindle format and the Android format. That's what it is. Once you know how to do something that requires Adobe Digital Editions, you know how to transfer it. And then if you're strong in the Google foo, you can Google it and find out anything else if it's an odd device. You will be asked non-library questions. That's the big thing to know. And if you're adverse to answering non-library related questions regarding how to reset their Amazon password, why does the Barnes & Noble support site suck so much compared to the Amazon support site, these are questions you'll have to ask. And our philosophy is we are information professionals, so we find the information for them. And then minimally, you have to have 2 trained staff on hand. How do you handle students who have no idea what a browser is or what Wi-Fi is or USB, etc.? You talk through it. That does happen. And that's where you schedule. We have appointment hours we set with customers where they can actually come into the virtual library and we work one-on-one with them. The nice thing is with all our branches as well, they actually offer computer classes on how to use a computer. This is how you use a mouse. So we do create a lifelong learning environment in our public libraries, our hometown libraries, to empower customers to get the skill sets to be where they need to be. So if they don't know how to use a browser or what Wi-Fi or USB is, we can go and get them the calendar for the Computer Training Center and get them the help they need. So, so that's really the biggest lessons we've learned. I want to make sure we leave you guys plenty of time for questions. Also know that this is the staff, those of us in the virtual library, and our email address, that you guys are more than welcome to email us questions and let us know. So I will, I guess, take other questions. Do I need to turn my mic over? I'm not sure. Any other questions? Do you just one subject class do you regularly? That's a very good question, Joanne. We actually have started to notice there is a demand for device-specific classes. I did a class recently at one of our branches just north of where I office, and it was a Kindle class, and we probably had about 35 people in there just for Kindles. So we have noticed there is a need for the most popular devices getting to know your Kindle. So, well, we do give instructions on a particular device, but inevitably the reason why we ask those questions beforehand is they say, I want to know how to use my device to get library books. So we're not, it's a good headline for the newspaper to say, get to know your e-reader, and then, again, the class is very flexible and fluid. We have the main things we want them to know about, but inevitably they also want to save some money and get free books. FY overdrive will work on Kindle Fire if you authorize it. Lee, are you asking me if I think it's okay to do it? I think that's entirely up to you and your conscience and your interpretation of your terms of service. How's that? Catherine, yes, you are welcome to take our handouts and make them better, please. And if you do something fabulous with them, let us know so that we can also benefit from your skills. Are the individual device classes just for using Overdrive? At this point in time, Jill, yes. They are, but we would definitely be willing to expand them to other devices and using the resources. We actually don't loan the Nook or anything right now. We're working with the concept of doing Sony Wi-Fi's as part of a test drive for people to get to know the technology. Dennis, I'm not sure about the PowerPoint slides, and Angela or Lainey would be able to answer that. If I was selecting 3 or 4 devices, what would it be? It would be, let me go back here on the slide, these devices right here. So, Rena, as far as marketing materials and posters and stuff, we can. I think the most thing we do in-house is we do a lot of banners on our website. We work with our PIO office to get them to do posters.
Hi, everyone. I'm so sorry. Let's see.
Can you guys hear me now? Okay, real quick, further after I give our email address, email us if you have any additional questions, and we'd be happy to answer them.
This is Lainey with the Public Programs Office. I just wanted to say thank you to Adri for your informative presentation, for sharing your handouts, and for sharing your contact information. And I wanted to let the attendees who are still in the room know that we are going to send a brief survey about today's session. You should receive that sometime tomorrow morning. When you get that email, we would really appreciate it if you would take just a few minutes to share your feedback with us. So thanks to all of you for being here today.